Gaza ceasefire maintaining talks stall in Cairo. Britain signs £2.26 billion loan in support of Ukraine. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching World Today with me, Daniel Baharuddin. Talks aimed at maintaining the ceasefire in Gaza hit an impasse in Cairo on Saturday over whether the truce should advance to a second phase. The talks were reported to have failed, with Hamas claiming that Israel intentionally tried to extend the first phase of the agreement by demanding the release of more of its detainees. However, Hamas rejected the plan and stated it would not release any Israeli detainees without a comprehensive agreement. The mediators failed to persuade the Zionist regime to engage in the next phase of negotiations. Moreover, Israeli political leaders pressured the negotiators to extend the first phase on the condition that Hamas would release more detainees, both alive and dead. Discussions on the second phase of the ceasefire agreement aim to negotiate the full termination of the war and the Israeli regime's occupation of Gaza. Additionally, it involves the release of all remaining Israeli detainees. Hamas emphasized its commitment to negotiating the second phase of the agreement, stating that Israel has no other options but to engage in the discussions. A red-covered table stretching several hundred meters carved a path through mounds of rubble in southern Gaza on Saturday as families gathered to break their fast during the first day of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. As the sun set over a neighborhood in Rafah, where the war has left barely a handful of buildings standing, hundreds of Gazans of all ages dug into their iftar meal, marking the end of the day's fast. Music wafted from loudspeakers through the crowd in Rafah, who sat on a long row of plastic chairs under bunting, Palestinian flags and lights strung between the broken concrete. As the crowd sat down to eat, uncertainty loomed over the next stages of the Gaza ceasefire. The first phase was drawing to a close on Saturday after largely bringing an end to more than 15 months of fighting. A second stage is supposed to pave the way for a more permanent end to the war, but negotiations have so far been inconclusive. The first phase of the truce has seen Hamas free 25 living hostages and return the bodies of 8 others to Israel in exchange for more than 1,700 Palestinian prisoners. Palestinians performed the first Tarawih prayers of the holy month of Ramadan in the war-devastated Gaza Strip recently amid the ruins of mosques across the enclave. Worshippers performed night prayers known as Tarawih at Al-Omari Mosque in Gaza City as the Jerusalem Grand Mufti office announced that the holy month of Ramadan would begin on Saturday in Palestinian territories. Palestinians laid out carpets and mats next to the ruins of destroyed mosques to perform Tarawih. The minaret of the 1,400-year-old mosque was destroyed and parts of the structure were severely damaged by the Israeli army in its genocidal war. The Ministry of Awqaf and Religious Affairs in Gaza reported last week that 1,109 out of 1,244 mosques in the region were destroyed and severely damaged due to the actions of the Zionists. British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves signed a £2.26 billion loan agreement for Ukraine on Saturday, with repayments set to come from profits generated by frozen Russian sovereign assets. The loan deal was signed in a ceremony attended by Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Ukrainian Finance Minister Sergei Marchenko participated via video link. Marchenko said he hoped there would be a full seizure of all Russian assets in the near future. The friendly nature of the proceedings in London was in stark contrast to Zelensky's fiery meeting with US President Donald Trump in the Oval Office on Friday, where the leaders had a very blunt exchange in front of the media. Zelensky will attend a wider summit of European leaders on later today. He is also scheduled to meet Britain's King Charles at the monarch's Sandringham estate in eastern England. Two passenger buses collided Saturday on a highway in southern Bolivia, leaving at least 37 dead, including 2 children and some 30 people injured. The accident happened during the early morning hours on the route between the cities of Uyuni and Colchani when one of the vehicles swerved into the oncoming lane. The accident, the country's most serious so far this year, occurred on a narrow two-way road early Saturday. One of the buses was heading to the city of Oruro, the scene this weekend of the Oruro Carnival, one of the largest festivals in Latin America that attracts tens of thousands of people. Bolivia's winding mountain roads are notoriously deadly. Road accidents kill an average of 1,400 people every year in the country of about 12 million inhabitants, according to government data. As the avian flu pandemic rocking the United States has spread like wildfire and forcing poultry farmers to cull 26 million birds, prices have skyrocketed. In New York City, a box of 12 eggs reached an average price of $8.47, according to a note issued by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Prices are already higher than consumers are used to after years of inflation. In some stores, the price of the kitchen staple has jumped so much that they are now being sold individually. Social media is rife with videos showing enterprising New Yorkers selling eggs on makeshift stands. Last week, several businesses in Brooklyn gave away free cartons of eggs, one per person, leading to winding waiting lines. Prices have reached historic heights with the impact of bird flu compounded by the dependence of consumers and retailers on a single large-scale producer. The government insists it is in talks with several countries to secure imported eggs. Earlier this week, U.S. President Donald Trump's administration said it would invest up to $1 billion to address the egg crisis. South Korea introduced new safety measures for carrying portable batteries or power banks on planes on Saturday following a fire on an Air Busan plane in January. According to the new rules which kick in on Saturday, passengers on South Korean airlines will now be required to keep power banks on their person and not in overhead cabin bins. Furthermore, devices should not be charged on board and battery quantity and strength limits will be enforced. Passengers will be permitted to carry up to 5 100-watt-hour portable batteries, while batteries over 160 watt-hours won't be allowed on board. The South Korean Transport Ministry also explained that the batteries will also need to be stored in clear plastic bags. Korean authorities said the measures were in response to public anxiety about fires after an Air Busan plane was consumed in flames on 28 January while waiting to take off at Gimhae International Airport in southern South Korea. Investigators have not yet determined the cause of the fire, but a preliminary investigation statement said it started in a cabin overhead locker after boarding. Uruguay is set for political shift as new president takes office. That and more coming up next. The M23 rebel group handed over Rwandan General Gakwerere to the Rwandan army in Goma at the border between the two countries on Saturday. During the transfer, Rwandan and M23 officers were seen shaking hands and military vehicles passed by with sirens audible. M23 Deputy Spokesperson Oscar Belinda claimed that the Tshisekedi government has been involved in FDLR or Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda activities, which he says include violence, taxation, kidnapping and rape against Congolese civilians.
C'est une guerre provoquée par Tshisekedi. Et il mettait sa confiance entre les mains de ces gens ici que vous venez de voir passer ici. N'est-ce pas? C'est eux qui lui ont dit, écoutez, nous sommes capables de battre le M23 qui constitue l'ennemi numéro 1 et nous allons aussi aller changer le régime là-bas chez nous au Rwanda, chez eux au Rwanda. Vous comprenez? C'est comme ça qu'ils avaient promis à Tshisekedi.
In Gisenyi, Rwanda, Gakwerere was escorted by police, searched and boarded a Rwandan army van while journalists posed questions to him. Colonel Joseph Mwesesie, Rwandan Army Brigade Commander, remarked that the M23's action have been a factor in the situation regarding the FDLR presence. Uruguay is set for a political shift to the centre-left as Yamandu Orsi took office on Saturday as the country's next president. Orsi, a 57-year-old former mayor, narrowly won the November election against the ruling centre-right coalition. As a moderate, Orsi has promised to strike a different balance between social welfare and economic growth by ushering in what he described as a modern left agenda. In his inaugural address at Montevideo's Legislative Palace, Orsi said that a time of refoundation is not starting, but one of new proposals and permanent construction. Orsi also thanked outgoing Conservative President Luis Lecalpo, who presented him with the presidential sash during a windy ceremony outdoors, where they shared a hug. During the campaign, Orsi sought to reassure Uruguayans he would avoid a sharp policy shift in the relatively stable and wealthy South American nation of 3.5 million people. While Uruguay's economy, driven by farm exports, is on track for another year of steady growth in 2025, high living costs, inequality and persistent levels of violent crime have dented the popularity of Lecalpo's outgoing government. 4 workers have died and a search operation is ongoing to rescue 5 others after an avalanche struck the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand in northern India. Authorities launched a large-scale rescue effort in the Chamoli district after an avalanche buried over 50 workers from the Border Roads organization on Friday. Indian defense officials confirmed that while 50 workers had been rescued, 4 succumbed to their injuries. A rescue operation is in progress to locate the 5 still trapped. Defense spokesman said helicopters are being used continuously to transport essential equipment, resources, and evacuate the injured. Northern Indian states have been experiencing heavy rainfall and snowfall in recent days, triggering landslides in several areas. Residents of the Indian Ocean island of La Reunion took stock of the damage Saturday after a devastating cyclone barreled through the overseas French territory, killing 4 people. Local people expressed shock at the level of destruction after Cyclone Garance struck the territory of 900,000 people Friday, uprooting trees, tearing off roofs and flooding homes. Entire streets were inundated and cars washed away. A red alert ordering the population to stay indoors was lifted on Saturday morning after Garance was downgraded to a severe tropical storm. Officials said the body of a man was found trapped under a tree in the capital, Saint Denis. The other victims, 2 women and a man, were carried away by flash floods, trapped in a mudslide or killed by an electrical fire. Some 120,000 people were still without electricity, while more than 950 were staying in temporary accommodation centers. About 200 firefighters and military personnel were to be sent in over the weekend from Mayotte, a French territory nearly 1,500 kilometers away, and from mainland France, the government said. Pope Francis, who has been in hospital for 2 weeks with double pneumonia, is in a stable condition with no repeat of the previous day's breathing crisis. The 88-year-old head of the Catholic Church is still receiving oxygen but has no fever, has been eating, was alert and praying, the Holy See said in its regular evening update. Vatican said his hemodynamic parameters, those relating to the flow of blood, are also stable, and he does not have leukocytosis, a high white blood cell count that often indicates an infection. Francis, leader of the world's almost 1.4 billion Catholics, was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on 14 February with bronchitis, but it soon developed into pneumonia in both lungs. Last weekend, the Vatican reported he was in a critical condition, suffering a major respiratory attack and requiring blood transfusions, prompting widespread concern. Catholics and other well-wishers around the world have been praying for the Pope, a liberal reformer who has led the Church for almost 12 years. On Saturday, pilgrims continued to visit the Gemelli Hospital despite the rain, lighting candles and praying at the foot of a statue of former Pope John Paul II. Still to come in sports, new rule for goalkeepers approved by IFAB. Premier League Crystal Palace beat second-tier Millwall 3-1 to reach the FA Cup quarter-finals on Saturday, but the win was marred by an injury to in-form forward Jean-Philippe Mateta. The 27-year-old Frenchman was struck on the head by Millwall goalkeeper Liam Roberts in the 7th minute at the Selhurst Park and needed oxygen on the pitch before being taken to hospital, suffering from concussion. Palace chairman Steve Parish described Roberts' challenge as the most reckless he had ever seen. Roberts was shown a red card following a VAR review after coming off his line to clear a long ball and catching the on-rushing Mateta in the head with his race studs. An own goal by defender Jaffer Tenganga in the 33rd minute and a close-range effort by Daniel Munoz put Palace in command, but 10-man Millwall hit back before halftime through Wes Harding and pushed Palace hard in the second period. In the match at Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace successfully advanced to the FA Cup quarter-finals after defeating Millwall 3-1. Goalkeepers who hold onto the ball for longer than 8 seconds will concede a corner under a new rule approved by the International Football Association Board IFAB on Saturday. Currently, Law 12.2 states that a goalkeeper has 6 seconds to release the ball before the opposing team is awarded an indirect free kick, but this has now been amended and the change will come into force next season. On-field referees will be aided in their decision-making by a visual 5-second countdown.
The referee has given an 8-second time limit for the goalkeeper to release the ball, and has used the hand signal of putting the hand in the air and then counting down for the last 5 seconds to really indicate to the goalkeeper that it's time to let go of the ball. The results of that have been very, very positive, and so we are going to move forward to try and put that into the laws of the game as soon as possible.
IFAB also announced that any competitions will be able to introduce laws, meaning only captains of each team can approach the referee. The Premier League adopted that rule this season and it was enforced at Euro 2024. The rule changes will be operational at the FIFA Club World Cup, which kicks off in June. Stefanos Tsitsipas finally broke his ATP 500 curse at the Dubai Tennis Championships on Saturday, beating Felix Auger-Aliassime 6-3, 6-3 to claim the title. The Greek star entered the decider having lost all 11 of his previous finals at the 500 level, but ensured this time would be different in a high-quality straight sets victory in just under an hour and a half. Tsitsipas also made sure it was third time lucky in Dubai, having previously lost the finals in 2019 to Roger Federer and in 2020 to Novak Djokovic. The win means Tsitsipas will return to the top 10 in the ranking for the first time since May, with the 26-year-old slotting in at number 9 when the list is updated on Monday. The player has faced the challenge of maintaining consistency for the past 10 months, leading him to make significant changes, including parting ways with his father, Apostolos Tsitsipas, as his coach. Alejandro Davodovic Fokina's remarkable resilience has taken him to the brink of his maiden ATP Tour title at the Mexican Open. The Spaniard, who had already survived 4 match points in the first round against Mattia Bellucci, fought past an informed Denis Shapovalov 7-6, 7-6 in a pulsating semi-final at the Arena GNP Seguros. The unseeded Spaniard, who had to save 4 match points earlier in the tournament, ended Shapovalov's 8-match winning streak after coming out on top in 2 tiebreaks. Davidovich Fokina had to dig deep, coming back from a 1-4 deficit in the opening set and later denying Shapovalov the chance to serve it out at 5-3. The victory marked Davidovich Fokina's 3rd ATP final and his first at the ATP 500 level. He now stands 1 match away from lifting his first career title, but will have to overcome Czech 8th seed Tomas Marchak in the championship clash. Marchak is the 2nd Czech finalist in Mexican Open history, following Jiří Novák, who won the 1998 title. 6-time MotoGP champion Marc Marquez made a dream start to life at factory Ducati when he led from lap 1 to the checkered flag to win the sprint at the season-opening Thailand Grand Prix on Saturday, as his younger brother Alex Marquez came in second. Twice MotoGP champion Francesco Bagnaia, Marquez's new teammate, finished 3rd to complete an all-Ducati podium. The Buriram International Circuit pole sitter rocketed off the line as Alex struggled to match his pace and never looked in danger of losing the top spot in the 13-lap sprint. It was just the 2nd time in his career that Marquez had won a sprint, with the first coming at the Aragon MotoGP in August. The 32-year-old Spaniard now leads the championship for the first time since 2019 after collecting 12 points, 3 more than Alex and 5 ahead of Bagnaia in 3rd, and will have the opportunity to stretch the gap further in Sunday's race. Trackhouse 24-year-old Japanese rider Ai Ogura had a promising MotoGP debut, making up 1 place from qualifying to come 4th. Franco Morbidelli was 5th, ahead of Pedro Acosta and Fabio Quartararo. Australian Jack Miller of Prima Pramac Yamaha crashed out at turn 8, having qualified 4th on the grid. Local hero Somkhya Chantra finished outside the points in 19th place. Coming up in our offbeat segment, speed meets style in comical tuk-tuk race. That and more in our offbeat segment. In the central district of Naibiul, northeastern Tunisia, known also as Al Rabad or Al Hasairia, a few workshops remain dedicated to the traditional craft of mat weaving, a once significant part of the city's history. This craft is now struggling to survive, with only a handful of artisans still practicing it. These artisans, who are focused and skilled, continue weaving mats mainly for moss, using golden rush strands, despite the diminishing interest in this art among the younger generation. The process of making a mat begins with the harvesting of soft rush strands from valleys. After being pulled from the earth, the strands are dried for 3 weeks on one side, then flipped to dry the other side for 10 days. Once dried, the rush strands are sorted by length. The weaving process itself involves meticulously arranging it on looms to create the intricate patterns that defines the mats. Some young artisans, like Marwan Shaledi, continue to value and preserve this tradition. He has also elevated to a new level by incorporating modern techniques and artistic flair into his work. While still honoring traditional methods, he has expanded the craft to include not just prayer mats, but also decorative items such as chairs, baskets, and home decorative pieces. Today, despite the challenges, artisans are striving to innovate and adapt the craft to modern tastes, turning it into decorative items, ensuring its survival and relevance. A tuk-tuk race turned the streets of the Egyptian coastal city of Guna into a battleground of speed and style, where tuk-tuks competed not only for the title of the fastest tuk-tuk, but also for the most eye-catching design. 11 teams adorned their 3-wheel rides with dazzling decorations, from dangling silver plates to slogans like "Took it easy" before battling it out on the racing track. The Giacomo team crossed the finish line with the fastest lap, earning them the title of the fastest tuk-tuk in the Middle East and winning them tickets to the Formula 1 Qatar Airways Azerbaijan Grand Prix 2025 in September. said Giacomo Crescenzi, driver of the winning team, expressed joy over the victory and exclaimed his pride by saying his tuk-tuk is currently the fastest in West Asia.
I'm very happy that Bianca, the tuk-tuk that won the race together with me and Matthias, is now officially the fastest tuk-tuk in the Middle East.
The race was organized by Red Bull, and organizers say it was the first official tuk-tuk race in Egypt. Russians celebrated Maslenitsa Folk Festival by setting fire to a giant wooden structure on Saturday at an open-air art park in central Russia. Nikola Lenovit's art park in Kaluga region is famous for burning massive wooden structures to celebrate start of spring, each year presenting a different theme of celebration. This year, the construction was dedicated to Don Quixote character from books of Spanish novelist Miguel de Cervantes and his fight with windmills. It took almost 3 months to build the 26 meters tall structure consisting of 24 wooden towers, festival organizers said. Visitors were allowed to thoroughly inspect it before it was burned down. Maslenitsa, or Shrovetide, is an Orthodox Christian tradition that falls on the last week before Orthodox Lent. Also known as Pancake Week or Butter Week, Maslenitsa is celebrated in Russia, Belarus and Ukraine and traditionally marks the end of the winter, which the Orthodox Church has accommodated as a week of feasting. Nigeria's National Museum Commission will be responsible for retrieving and keeping priceless Benin bronzes, taking on the task with the assent of the royal ruler appointed sole owner and custodian of the objects nearly 2 years ago. Nigeria is on a quest to recover thousands of intricate bronze sculptures and castings that were looted by British soldiers during a raid on the then separate kingdom of Benin, located in what is now southern Nigeria in 1897. The stolen bronzes are among Africa's finest and most significant heritage objects and are mostly in Europe. In March 2023, then-President Muhammadu Buhari signed a decree saying the Oba, or King, of the historic Kingdom of Benin rightfully owned all returned Benin bronzes and was responsible for managing all places where the artifacts are kept. Olugbil Holloway, Director General of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments (NCMM), informed that the Oba did not have the infrastructure to care for the bronzes. In 2023, the NCMM had said the University of Cambridge Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology put on hold plans to return more than 100 artifacts after the government decree. Holloway, however, said it was now a matter of time before an agreement would be reached with Cambridge University for the artifacts' return. That wraps up World Today this time around. In our top story, Gaza ceasefire maintaining talks stall in Cairo. I'm Daniel Bahardin. Thank you for watching. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Assalamualaikum, salam Malaysia Madani.